Welcome to the final summary presentation in this series on wildlife management principles. My intent here is to summarize the main reasons why models are useful in wildlife management and to summarize a few of the key principles we have explored and learned from a basic computer simulation model that we set up for an example study area in the Yukon. In the first presentation, I suggested to you that people have the unique ability to think and contemplate about the world around us, and it is the basic act of thinking about our world that is the essence of modeling. It is our ability to think which gives us foresight and allows us to make decisions and plan our activities toward the future. Our thoughts and mental models not only form the basis of our knowledge and understanding, but we also use them when we communicate with one another. The simple act of sharing stories, experiences, and knowledge are based upon comparing and contrasting mental models. Therefore, models also provide a basis for learning, which can be self-reflective where we think and reflect independently, or learning can be inspired by other people. Either way, the core activities of thinking, communicating, and learning is based upon sharing and understanding mental models. We use the concept of a bathtub and the inflows and outflows that affect the level of water in the tub as an analogy to what biologists refer to as stock and flow models, whereas stock represents a group of animals and flow refers to the number of new animals added or removed. The analogy to wildlife is to think of the amount of water within the tub as a wildlife population. In this context, the only way for a population to increase is through births of babies and/or through immigration as an inflow. And the only way for a population to decrease is for animals to leave the population because they have died or they have immigrated out, shown here as an outflow from the tub. The balance between the rate of inflows, births and immigration, and outflows, deaths and emigration, gives us the actual number of animals in our bathtub model. By tracking the number of animals, or the level of water over time in our bathtub model, we can monitor trend. To simplify the model, we assumed that the number of animals immigrating and emigrating cancel each other out. We applied the concept of a stock and flow model to an animal population and used caribou as an example. We distinguished females from males, and in the simplest example, we defined 3 age classes: calves, yearlings, and adults. Each age and sex class of caribou in the model structure represents a stock or unique group within the population. The green arrows represent inflow rates from one stock to another. For example, a certain proportion of calves become yearlings, calf survival. A certain proportion of yearlings survive to become adult, yearling recruitment. And similarly, only a proportion of adults survive from one year to the next, adult survival. The long green arrow linking adult females to calves is the annual rate of births, which is generally referred to as calf productivity. In contrast, the red arrows represent the number of animals leaving each of the 6 stocks in the stock and flow model. In other words, the red arrows represent mortality rates. We then applied this simple conceptual model into a working model that grouped adult animals into 3 classes: young, mature, and old adults. As the complexity of the wildlife population model increased, we recognized that a computer model was the only feasible way to effectively conduct all the calculations needed to track and estimate the number of animals within each stock, estimate rates of birth, death, and survival for each of the green and red arrows, and to link the stocks and flows over a defined yearly time step. From a broader perspective, we learned that computer simulation models are just tools that help us visualize and represent the thinking we already do. In order to provide realistic information into a model, we selected an example Yukon study area with representative wildlife and landscape characteristics. With respect to wildlife, we reviewed and compiled general information on life history characteristics of several species, including grizzly bears, caribou, moose, and Dall sheep. This table shows the 5 different age classes for females: young of year, yearlings, young adults, mature adults, and old adults, and their corresponding age categories in months or years. The photographs show examples for each of the age classes according to the 4 different species. Males for each of the 4 species were also categorized according to the same 5 age classes as the females. As part of the stock and flow modeling approach, we needed to compile basic information on the production rate of newborns by adult females according to their species and age class. Note that the age at which females first have young is different for each species. For example, we generally think that female grizzly bears don't have their first cubs until they are 5 years old. In contrast, yearling female caribou and moose can breed if conditions are good. For Dall sheep ewes, age of first breeding is generally 2 years, so they have their first lambs as 3-year-olds. You'll also note that newborn production is generally highest in prime-aged mature females. Also worth noting is that adult cow moose are able to produce twins, so when grouped across all cows in an age class, the average production can be greater than 1 calf per cow, that is, greater than 100%. To incorporate preliminary estimates of natural mortality and survival for the different species of wildlife in the model, we reviewed general scientific research reports and papers on relative importance of predation, diseases, density-dependent, and weather-related mortality. We used that biological information to provide a range of values for survival rates for each of the 5 age classes across the 4 wildlife species. The main pattern you can see in the table is, as you look from left to right across the age class columns, there is a general trend in the survival rates that shows young of year animals have the lower survival rates of the 5 age classes. The range of survival values improves for yearlings, but are highest in young and mature adults. Then, as animals become old adults, the survival rates start to decline and become more variable. In addition to estimating wildlife population characteristics, we also evaluated the quantity and quality of habitat in the study area. We used a computer mapping program called the Geographic Information System, or GIS for short, to estimate the area for each of up to 20 landscape or habitat types. We ranked the value of those habitat types for each of the wildlife species based on expert opinion and the general scientific literature. This figure shows the 20 general landscape types within the study area. For example, you can see representative pictures of high elevation coniferous forest, herbaceous wetland, wetland forest, and large rivers. As we learned in video 3, in order to fully appreciate and understand how and why wildlife populations change over time, we also need to understand variability in environmental and landscape and habitat conditions. Consequently, for a landscape model to simulate natural habitat changes over time, it needs to have basic information on the main natural disturbance regimes that shape and drive change over time. Natural disturbances such as fire and insect outbreaks are fundamentally important in the ecology of boreal forests. Fires and insect outbreaks may kill large areas of trees, but in so doing, they stimulate the forest to rejuvenate itself, starting again from young seedlings and shrubs. The result is a rich mosaic of forested land that is a mix of different patch sizes with varying species composition and age classes of trees. This forested patchwork in turn provides habitat for wildlife. Information on meteorology, such as seasonal weather patterns, precipitation, snowpack, and temperature, are also very important factors that affect wildlife populations, and were also summarized and entered into the model. However, in this simplified example, neither forest insects nor climate change were considered in model runs. The model also required information on the amount of human footprint within the study area. A human footprint is a feature on the landscape that occupies a certain amount of space or area and was created by people. Some examples that come to mind are major roads, minor roads, trails, seismic lines, towns, cities, acreages, pipeline and transmission line right-of-ways, well pads, surface mines, and agriculture. Human footprints can be permanent features or they can be reclaimed over time. However, since the study area we used was remote, there was virtually no human footprint, so it was not included in our model example. Thank you for your ongoing interest. Please view video 5.2, which is the second part of this final summary presentation.